Hi everyone, it's Marisa Williams with Southern Technical College. Tonight we're going to go over some of those quadratic equations. First we're going to start with multiplying binomials with the FOIL method. You might remember FOIL standing for first, outer, inner, last. And the setup is going to look like this. You're going to have one little thing where you have an unknown plus a number, another unknown plus a number, and we're trying to multiply them together. So as we said, first stands for first, outer, inner, last. And when we say first, we mean this first multiplies this first. If you see where the arrow goes, this times this. And then we're also going to take this times this. These are our outermost. Then we're going to do our innermost, this times this. And our last, this times this. So the arrow is going to show you the way to go. Do you have to multiply in that? No, it's just a nice order to keep it in line. So let's look back to our original equation. When we take the x times x, that gives us x squared. And then we're going to take the x times the 3, which gives us 3x. X times 2 gives us 2x. And then the 2 times the 3 gives us a total of 6. Next thing we got to do is combine our 2x and our 3x together to give us a total of 5x. So x squared plus 5x plus 6 is the answer to that FOIL method question. Let's kick it up a notch and see what happens when we put a little bit bigger numbers into the mix. I wanted to kind of throw in some things just to show you you're still going to multiply in the same step. Sometimes you might combine your answers. In this equation, you're not going to, because I put in some different things. But we're still going to multiply the same way. So we're going to take our 3x squared times our 4x. How many x's is that total? It's going to be 12x cubed. Why? We're going to take our 2 plus the 1x gives us 3 x's. So we say x to the third. All right. Next, we're going to take our 3x squared times our 6a. 3 times 6 gives us 18. We got our a plus our x squared in there. Next, we're going to multiply our negative 2a times our 4x. When we do that, that gives us a negative 8ax. Last, our negative 2a times our positive 6a. This still gives us a negative 12a squared because you have 2 a's, so you got to count them up, right? So in this one, we don't have anything to combine, but we're still multiplying in the same FOIL order. So now that we kind of have a better understanding of how the FOIL method works, let's go backwards. So this is a setup for a quadratic equation. If you forget, the setup for equation is a squared plus bx plus c. We'll get back to that in a minute. But you're usually going to have something with an x squared or an a squared or whatever, and then another x, and then one without any letters with it. So let's practice the backdoor method. And by that, I mean, let's look at our very last number, and we say what times what will give us 81 that will add together to give us 18. So sometimes this takes a little thinking. This equation is a little easier. And what comes up when we say 81 is 9 times 9 gives us 81. And if we add 9 and 9 together, that would give us 18. So that's how we do our backdoor method, is we're looking what multiplies together to give us the last number that will add or subtract to give us the middle number. In this occasion, we know we're adding together because there's no negative signs in this answer. And when we data that out, we said x plus 9 times x plus 9 would give us the result of x squared plus 18x plus 81. And again, when we're solving or completing the square, we're going to say this x plus 9 equals 0. So our real answer is when we say x plus 9 equals 0, we're going to bring our 9 by doing the opposite. We're doing adding, so we're going to subtract. Same on the other side. So our real answer to this is x equals negative 9. Let's look at another example. When we have x squared minus 3x plus 54, now we got a minus in the equation. What do we do? Same thing. Again, we're going to start at the back door. 54. What times what gives us 54? Anybody? Well, we know 5 plus 4 is 9, so we know 9's going into it. 9 times what? What's one more than 5? 6. So 9 times 6 will give us 54. Now if we subtracted 9 and 6, if we said 6 minus 9, that would give us a negative 3, in which case that's what we have up there, right? So we know our 9 has to be negative, our bigger number has to be negative in order to have the negative sign right here. If it was the opposite way, we would have a positive sign, right? But in this case, we have a negative sign, so our bigger number is going to be negative. In this case, the setup is going to be more like this. X minus 9 times x plus 3, which would give us that resulting multiplication like that. Now, if we're completing the square, we got to say x minus 9 equals 0. So we're going to add our 9 to both sides. So that means our real answer is x is positive 9. Or we have two numbers in there, so we have two answers on these, right? So the next one we have to say x plus 3 equals 0. Again, we're going to minus 3 from both sides. So our real answer, we have two of them. Either x is 9 or x is negative 3. So remember, those signs are the opposite of what you see in there when we complete the sign. That comes in to importance when we consider stuff like this favorite. Oh yeah, x is equal to minus b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. I know you all remember that little song. You can hum it to Pop Goes the Weasel, but that is a big scary looking equation. We're going to show you how to use it. So where do you get this a, b, and c from? Let's go back to our original quadratic equation setup, a squared plus bx plus c. Let's give an example of that, okay? So if I have x squared plus 8x plus 15, you'll know that I have my a squared and my x squared is kind of in the same position. B and my 8's in the same position. C and the 15's in the same position. So in this case, I'm going to say my a is 1. Why? Because there's nothing in front of the x here. When there's nothing there, it'd be a 1. If it was a 0, there'd be nothing at all, right? So it has to be a 1. This case, I have my 8x. What's in front of my 8? That's my a, my 8. So that's my b. So b equals 8. This what's by itself, that's my c. So a equals 1, b equals 8, c equals 15. And we're going to plug that into our equation here. So we said x is negative b. In this case, our negative b would be negative 8. Because our b is positive 8, but we're going to take negative of it. So negative 8 plus or minus, those signs just stay in there, that's part of the equation. Big funky square root sign. And we're going to say b squared. What's our b? That's 8. So I'm just going to put my 8 in here. And then the 4 is part of the equation. So you're always going to have a minus 4. And then my a was 1 and my c was 15. All over 2 times a, which my a was 1. So I just plugged those numbers into the equation. But now that I have the numbers in, let's clean it up a little bit, right? So 8 times 8 is 64. 4 times negative 4 times 1 times 5 is going to give us a negative 60. So underneath that square root sign, we have 64 minus 60. Notice my negative 8 and the 2 are still in the same position. The 2 times 1 is 2. That's how I got the 2 on the bottom, right? So all things else are the same. I just multiplied this part here and this part here to get this. Now that I have it, before I take the square root, I got to subtract because I got to do what's under the square root sign first, right? 64 minus 60 gives us 4, okay? So we have negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 4 over 2. What's the square root of 4? We mean what number times itself gives us 4. And in this case, it's going to be 2. So we're going to simplify it as a negative 8 plus or minus 2 over 2. So now that plus or minus comes in to mean that we have two different scenarios. We have one answer where negative 8 minus 2 over 2, and the other answer is going to be negative 8 plus 2 over 2. So let's break these down one at a time. Let's focus on this one here. Negative 8 minus 2 over 2, negative 8, and a negative 2 gives us a negative 10. Negative 10 divided by 2 gives us an answer of negative 5. And on this side, negative 8 plus 2 over 2, negative 8 plus 2 gives us negative 6 over 2, and that gives us an answer of negative 3. So the way they do this is they put it in a curly Q, kind of with the brackets, curly brackets, and then we say x equals negative 5, comma, negative 3. So either one. So this is the long, bulky way of doing this. But congratulations, we can still do this in our backdoor method. Now you can't always do the backdoor method, but in this particular one we can. So let's review that. So back to original equation, x squared plus 8x plus 15, right? So again, we're gonna start with our last one, 15. What times what gives me 15? In this case, I'm gonna say 3 times 5 equals 15. And if I add my 3 and the 5 together, do I get 8? Yes, I do. So that means my setup is gonna be x plus 3 and x plus 5. But remember, when we're completing the square, we gotta make both of those equal to 0. So when we say x plus 3 equals 0, we take our -3 to both sides. That means x is -3. Or we take x plus 5 equals 0, do the opposite, which is -5 for both sides, till we get the result of x equals -5. And if we look over here, that's the same answers. So no matter which way you do it, you should get the same answers. So I know there's a lot of gobbledygook up here, but hopefully you kind of get that big picture of how the FOIL method interacts with some of those quadratic equations where you can go forward and backwards with that. All right, y'all, have a good one. We'll see you next time.